All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the September, our fall edition of the user group, or the beginning of fall edition of the user group. Appreciate everybody's time today. Appreciate Tony and Kelly being here to kind of help out, and Kim for getting us opened up and started. Lots of good content for you today. Hope everybody's had a wonderful summer or had a wonderful summer as schools are back in session and we get uh, that start of fall going and really getting into the latter part of our year here. And as Kim mentioned in our warm up and introductions, getting this organization as we uh, get ever nearer to the forum. Uh, Also, as mentioned in our startup, this is our last virtual buyer user group meeting before we go to the forum in November. Next month, we'll send out an EVA extra with, I'm sure, a couple updates and interesting tidbits and things like that. And then the next time we see everybody, we'll be in person at our forum in November. So let's dig into the user group meeting for today. Got a couple items we want to go through. Number one was the welcome, and again, Kim does such a wonderful job of getting us started and welcoming everybody in. If you are watching this as a recording, um, I would love for you to be able to attend one of our meetings in person uh, and virtually in person, and certainly at the forum. But Kim does such a great job of welcoming everybody and usually has an interesting question or comment where we get to share a little bit, which is always nice to hear from everybody all across the Commonwealth of Virginia. We've got a couple news and notes we're going to go over today. Big focus for today is invoicing, not necessarily a demonstration. If you're interested in a demonstration of invoicing, I'm pretty sure from thinking back, we didn't do it necessarily the last forum session, which would have been in July. We did one in May, which has a full demonstration of invoicing. I encourage you to go watch that if you'd like a demonstration. But I'm going to do a little bit of overview of where we're at with invoicing and continue to make a push from an adoption standpoint and hopefully get you interested in that and hopefully allow you, if you haven't already, to spread the word throughout your organization about EVA electronic invoicing. And then we will wrap up here today. I'm going to put a little bit of focus on the forum. I'll be quite honest with you guys, going through the pandemic and having forum canceled for a few years, having forum or canceled for 1 year, and then having forum come in from a virtual perspective. Quite honestly, the EVA transition had a huge impact on the forum back in 2022. But getting to go back in person last year made me realize how valuable that was to get to see at least some of you. And we had very good attendance. So we got to see a lot of you in person and what that meant to have those personal connections again. So if you can convince your leadership, or if you are a leader yourself and you get a chance, I think there's tons of value beyond EVA. Um, and coming to the forum, which is in Virginia Beach this year. But we're going to highlight and put a little focus on some of the EVA sessions that are going to be happening at the forum to give you a little taste for what to look for from an EVA perspective going into the forum. And always keeping in mind, there's way more than EVA at the forum. But certainly, since this is an EVA platform, I'm going to highlight that a little bit today as well. Pretty common slide if you've been this next slide, if you've been coming to our user groups for probably the last year or so, I'm kind of leave this slide sitting in here. It's great for the recording. It's also great for you guys to see. I'm going to talk about the EVA tips here in just a minute, some ones I'd like to highlight and for you guys to focus on as we shift to news and notes. But our release notes for EVA are located at that address for you to go in and see are pretty much on a monthly schedule now, a monthly production release as we're doing updates. Not as much happening over the summer because of the focus on electronic invoicing, and that's really where we've been putting a lot of energy to get that module stood up. But we have had a couple small releases, or if you haven't had a chance to look through the release notes in a while, always a good area to visit to see some of the changes and enhancements that are happening in eVA. And you get a lot of detail. May not care about a lot of them. We had a release last week. We're not really going to talk about it, or really, I need to remove the word really. We are not going to talk about it in this user group because it had some supplier impacts and then some data impacts where we were making some changes to our data warehouse or some updates. But again, if you're interested in that stuff or just want to remind yourself of some of the things that have gone in, great link for that. And then we're always highlighting our eVA tips. We do both buyer and supplier tips. Think of it like a frequently asked questions area or an area that we have identified some things that we want to highlight. There's lots of good content out there, not only from if you're a procurement director or leader in your organization, but even for your end users and folks like that. So some helpful things to keep in mind. And we're going to highlight a few of those as we go into our news and notes section. And that's our next slide here. So just some news and notes and just some things I wanted to highlight and point out to you. Buyer tips, and even put an exclamation point on it. So if you are a procurement officer, or if your role at your organization includes contracting, we put a great buyer tip out about contracts and how important these two particular items are on a contract and making sure we get them right when we enter contracts in eVA. One of them being the contracting entity, and that is the owner of the contract. Making sure the owning agency, the owning university, the owning local government is selected properly in that contracting entity field. And we want it to be the highest level possible, that the agency is highlighted there, and making sure that has been selected properly before we commit that contract to the database. The other one is the contract supplier, and making sure double, triple checking, heck, reaching out to our team if you need us to any help with that, making sure we have picked the proper supplier and proper supplier location when we commit a contract to eVA. Because let me tell you guys, if we get that wrong, particularly contract supplier, there's no way for us to modify that. You've got to cancel that particular contract and reissue if we get the supplier wrong. Think of it like a document. Throw eVA out, right? If I had a paper document and I got the supplier in there wrong, I'm going to potentially have to redo a lot of stuff and get that document redone. Same thing in eVA. Everything is hinged on contract supplier and making sure we have that contract supplier, exactly the right supplier who is going to be servicing that contract, providing those goods and services, and who we're going to be sending purchase orders to. If that gets messed up, there's no modification. It is a cancellation, and you're reissuing a brand new contract and new contract numbers and everything. So again, a great buyer tip out there with a little bit more details located in the buyer tips section. So go check that out. The other thing I wanted to remind you guys of, while our team and DPS certainly has relationships with suppliers, you guys are the ones that are doing business with these suppliers, hopefully forming those relationships as you're, managing and executing on contracts that you have with your specific suppliers, and then also potentially bringing new suppliers into eVA to do business with, and even for your small dollar purchases, hopefully forming those relationships with the supplier community that is participating in eVA and delivering products and services to your agencies. There are supplier tips. So some great tips out there on the supplier side that you can direct your suppliers to. I got two highlighted here to point out. There's more than these two in the supplier tip section. This has been a big topic of discussion lately from a supplier side. How do I get paid? How do I actually, I'm doing business with you. I've won a solicitation. I've been awarded a solicitation. I've got a contract, or I'm simply getting small dollar purchase orders from you. How do I get paid? If your suppliers have any questions about that, we've got a tip out there for them and some guidance around that. So we think that's a great one, something you can absolutely point your supplier community to. And they are if you're curious about where the Supplier tips are there is a supplier training area, very similar to buyer training in eVA, and those supplier tips are located there. The other one is just simply a supplier registration one. So if you're bringing new suppliers on and they've got questions or they've got concerns, they can absolutely reach out to eVA Customer Care. We think supplier registration is pretty easy, and hopefully you do not need that assistance. So that supplier tip around supplier registration might be able to help your new suppliers kind of get an idea of what to do in eVA. While I'm sitting on this from a news and notes perspective, Kim not only is a fabulous host of the eVA Buyer User Group, she also does, I mean, pretty much several times a month, if not weekly, Supplier Outreach. And it is, she hosts it. She's there to answer questions. So it's virtual, but it's virtual with a real person. And Kim really runs the supplier community through how to do business with Virginia. And it's 2 sessions. There's an area on the eVA homepage that talks about that. It's supplier outreach training. They're free. And again, a great resource to direct your suppliers to if they have any questions about doing business with eVA or what it means to participate here with our program. So, hadn't really talked about some of these areas in a while in much detail. And as we kind of march into the fall, wanted to bring some highlights to that. The last thing I'll have here, our tips area, Tony Jordan, Tony really brought that to us as an idea to kind of enhance our outreach and enhance our training. And it was really something that he did in a previous agency where he, had a lot of responsibility around communication and training and outreach at his old agency. And we get our team members to kind of come up with tips and things like that. But I wanted to offer it to the user group. If you have something that you think is handy or has made a difference in how you interact with eVA or how you do business with eVA on your side, reach out to us. Let us know. We'd love to chat with you about that and maybe incorporate that into our buyer and supplier tips. So I kind of open that up to all you guys. If you have anything to share, we'd be happy to put that together for you and get those tips loaded on the buyer or supplier side. So please reach out. And my last news and notes comment here is with our customer care team, our eVA customer care team. And I just have it titled here, eVA customer care emails. Every time we have a web form, so we have a couple ways you can get in touch with customer care, right? You can call them. We have an 800 number, toll-free number where you can call customer care. We also have more specific forms, and we really like those because the form, if you have an issue and you need to report an issue and it's not an emergency, you can go fill out this form and you can give us a lot of details. We have a lot of areas you can type in some details and impacted areas and things like that, so we can really get your issue classified and get it to the right person to get you help. You can also send a direct email to customer care. One of the things that I'm hoping everybody keeps in mind, our ticketing system isn't very smart sometimes. And we're noticing a lot of individuals are getting into a conversation with our customer care email, or they're sending in an issue, or they're, doing multiple reply emails, and they continue to copy the customer care email on subsequent emails, potentially on the same subject. Every time you have that eVA customer care email copied, even if it's on a CC, even if you're carbon copying, it creates a new issue in our system. So this causes a little bit of an administrative burden for our guys. So I threw that in there for my team. Our customer care team, Gania Holly, who's our manager over there, kind of brought this to my attention. I figured I'd take this time to kind of talk about that. There is no need to carbon copy or continually, if you're having a discussion in email, continually copy customer care, because you're just creating a new ticket, even if you're really focused on one subject area. So just kind of a note and something I wanted to get out there for you guys as a reminder. So if you could help us with that and pass the word around to your users, that would be greatly, greatly appreciated. All right. So shifting out of news and notes, let's do some invoicing discussion and kind of talk about where we're at. If you are new to the user group, invoicing has absolutely, over now the last probably 6 months or so, has been a huge focus for us. We're putting a lot of time and energy into this. We haven't launched a new module in a very, very long time, and this is truly a new module for us. So it's been exciting, it's been fun, but it has been a big focus. If you have been with us over the last couple of months, you'll go, "Oh man, here goes Shane again talking about invoicing." But like I said, absolutely focused. We're very excited about the features and functions on this. So I wanted to get you a little update on invoicing. Uh, let's consider this kind of prep as we go into the forum. And I'll talk about that a little bit later, but we're absolutely going to have an invoicing session at the forum. So consider this a little pre-work, a little prerequisite as we go into our in-person forum in November to kind of get you guys updated on how we're doing and what's going on with invoicing. So just some updates here. Functionality is in prod, so the features and functions itself are in prod. I actually got asked the question the other day. What if I wanted to turn it on right now? I could. We are fully have the ability to flip the switch and have agencies functioning in production, literally at the flip of an option on a table that yours truly and members of my team have access to. Now, that's not a suggested method to implementing electronic invoicing because there's a lot that goes into it to get you guys ready for that. And that's kind of what I'm talking about next. We've got a handful of agencies that we're working with right now where we're working on implementation, and that work is ongoing. We've got several agencies set up in UAT with user IDs and access to invoicing in UAT and getting that set up ongoing. We're doing a lot of work with business scenario and business process reviews and overviews. We're still kind of beating through and working with, we'll call them, you can call them pilot agencies or introductory agencies to this, kind of what our training materials are going to look like, what our more formal training plan is eventually going to look like. The point with this is right now, with these early stages and the volume of agencies we're working with, we've very much have the opportunity and taken the opportunity to be very hands-on and very in-person. So these agencies are getting a lot of attention, a lot of hands-on in-person attention from our team. So if you were thinking about reaching out to us, reaching out to DPS, reaching out to my team or your account exec to begin the invoicing process, we've still got some space for some of these early implementers. And again, if you want that hands-on and in-person attention, there's still some room to fit some of you guys in. Be quite honest with you guys, much like the rest of the eVA modules, as we mature, as we begin to roll agencies out, that hands-on in-person attention, we're going to be relying on other methods to teach you invoicing. So if this is something that interests you, absolutely something to think about. Another bullet point that's not on here that I probably should have added, but I'll kind of get it out verbally. There is also, as part of the implementation, supplier outreach and identification of suppliers. And that is certainly, part of what you do as well. So that's kind of where we are. Functionality is fully in production, and we are right in the thick of working with several agencies to implement and go live. So very excited. So I'm going to shift gears a little bit out of kind of an update and then really talk about, and you might have heard these before, but really rehash, why are you doing this to me? And the text is getting a little small, so I'm going to slip my glasses on so I can kind of read through this with you. But, you're kind of saying, Shane, why are we doing invoicing? What's my benefit? Why do I want to consider this? And I'm going to give you kind of 4 areas to focus on, and there's some overlap in that. We really think, and once it's implemented, once it's rolled out, we really think you're going to see improved efficiency in the invoicing process. Kim, you have your hand up. and you're on mute.
Nope, nope, nope. Sorry. Just over here
Oh,
toggling.
okay. No problem. Kim's hand like went up like that she wanted to say something. So uh but keeping going here, we're really talking about an efficiency improvement. Faster processing, reduced error rates, automated processes and workflows, easier invoice creation and processing, and the self-service ability to track invoices. So moving away from potentially tracking an email inbox or dealing with mail, and eventually transitioning, our goal, our vision, is that all of our suppliers that we're doing business with in eVA would do electronic invoices with us. So again, an improved efficiency. We're looking to drive towards that. Improving transparency. Both sides of this, and again, you can go back. I'm pretty sure it's the May user group. And if I'm wrong about the May user group, it's then would be the one before that. But I'm pretty sure it's the May user group. If you want to see the hands-on demonstration, if you also want to see kind of the screens and demonstration, we're going to be doing that at the forum as well, and that will be recorded. But my point with this is there's transparency on both sides of this process. PO, receipt, invoice, PO, receipt, invoice, and status. So your buy side and your supplier side see both of those. So giving your suppliers that ability to see how much has been ordered, how much has been received, how much they've invoiced, and then what condition those invoices are in. Are they still being approved? Have they been marked as okay to pay? Have they been paid? So some visibility into the invoicing process for the suppliers that they do not have now. Same thing maybe for your fiscal technicians, even procurement, and your end users. What condition are invoices in? Have things been paid? Especially if a supplier is knocking on your door, being like, "When am I going to get paid?" And that kind of drives back to that tip I had before. That you can hand to a supplier. How do I get paid? There's also some, from a transparency perspective, certainly management visibility and oversight if you're in a leadership position at your organization, and then audit visibility, where, a little bit cleaner, one stop shop to go to see all this stuff, if you're doing electronic invoicing. Cost savings. Again, haven't measured that yet, but we're hoping with the efficiency that I talked about in the top left corner, we hope at some point you would see reduced staff time in the processing of invoices. Certainly, we hope less printing and postage costs. That all gets back into business process reviews. Are we going to be changing our business process? Are we going to be, using eVA from a documentation perspective? All kinds of things that we're talking about when our team is sitting with your staff and going through some of those things. But we do think certainly there are areas where cost savings can be a factor. And then last but not least, I think it kind of ties everything together, this fourth one, improving our data accuracy and compliance. PO data is automatically being pulled in. There's not guesswork. There's not hand keying of that data on the supplier side. There are some automated matching and variance checks that are happening right on screen from a three-way match perspective. Again, in that transparency and visibility to let you see that process. Again, it's auditable. And then our end goal, we have space where we'd like to track some of those payment methods and payment details and what happened, how did we pay. There's some back end integrations that can be done to make that happen. Thinking about this, hey, my agency, I want to come in, I want to be committed to this. You guys might have shown this to you before, certainly if you've talked to me individually. I've run some procurement and fiscal leadership through this slide. But what do we need? What's the commitment we need as a team as we're working together with you to get us to a successful landing spot on that? Engagement and support. Got to see invoicing as a strategic priority, right? You need to see that we're going to put in the effort to get ourselves there. That includes executive support, making sure top to bottom in your organization, there's buy-in for that, making sure your team is available and that we're partnering together. And then certainly, from our side, DPS and the EVA team being committed to you guys. Evolution versus revolution as we move to electronic process, making decisive and timely decisions. Having the right people at the table when we do business process and business scenario overviews. We're there to work with you. Um, from a functional standpoint, we haven't run into anything where eVA has some sort of massive change that needs to be made from an invoicing perspective. But there is absolutely a lot of discussion about business process and business flow and how we get invoices authorized and what does three-way match mean, and what if we have discrepancies and how are we going to handle that. Got to have the decision makers at the table, from that perspective. And again, our team is going to work with you and your teams about managing requirements versus wants, prioritizing those, and just making sure in this first evolution, um, that we're putting together a structure for you in eVA that works for your organization. We're not coming in to tell you how to change your business processes. We're coming in to work with you to make that happen. All right. And you're telling us what your processes are, and we're working with you to make that work in the best possible manner we can in eVA. And then this is the hardest thing for everybody, embracing the change, right? Let's all embrace the change. Communicating early and often. Now, certainly our team communicating early and often, but that's also an ask from an agency side. Does everybody across your leadership change know what's going on? Do your end users and your fiscal technicians and your procurement staff, are they aware of what's going on? What does that look like from a training perspective? And then embrace that training and embrace the potential business process modifications during the transformation. So just a couple of things we're kind of asking, and I hope some of that stuff in this discussion is helpful. And I appreciate getting it recorded here in this user group meeting, for posterity purposes. So that's some of the things, as we've been working with agencies and we're learning, and our team's getting better, and we're also getting smarter and learning and evolving with you. But guys, it's worth repeating. Tony, Miranda Bowling from our team who's helping with this, your account executive is going to be involved and going to be at the meetings as well. We even have staff from CGI coming. Guys, we are not coming into your organization to tell you how to do business. I will repeat that. We are not coming into your organization to tell you how to do invoicing. We're looking to come to your organization to deliver a tool that gives you that benefit slide. And we want to hear your business processes, and we're there to work together to make it work, not to have you radically change how you're doing business. That's not our goal. So again, I've beaten on that a little bit, but worth repeating. So some other things we're seeing just to get your mind going. If maybe I'm starting to push you towards, maybe we ought to think about, what this means for our organization moving forward with invoicing. Couple of things, some I'm calling it decision points. A couple of things that my team has dug up and has identified from a user setup perspective. Your fiscal leads, who's going to be the leader, who's going to be that first line of defense to get those invoices, potentially doing a signing out to fiscal technicians or to business owners across your organization to get an invoice authorized. How is procurement involved? Right? So I'm talking to you guys. This is a procurement buyer user group, right? Or an eVA buyer user group. I'm assuming most of you have a procurement role there. And you're likely, if invoicing is something you're interested in, bringing that to your fiscal staff. Some of you might wear two hats as well, depending on the size of your agency and your staff. But how is procurement involved in this? All right. What is their role? From that perspective, things you need to think about. What about other business owners that aren't necessarily involved directly in procurement or finance? How does that work and how do they fit in? Three-way match procedures. All right. We know we got to do that, right? PO, receipt, invoice. There is going to be a ton of transparency. You're going to very easily see the three-way match multiple ways when you're going through this process. But we know not everything equals out. It'd be great if every purchase order was $100 and every receipt was $100 and every invoice was $100. And we always had that match and we just approved that invoice and off we run. But we know there's variance there. I can tell you receiving is all over the place, right? And certainly that's a discussion point for us about receiving training and making sure we're doing that right, and making sure we're giving you, from my perspective, the tools to do that receiving properly in eVA. But boy, the transparency on that's going to come out, and you're going to see all those variances. And we have some scenarios written down that our team's going to talk about you with. Are there exceptions? What other considerations are there around that process? And more than just the three-way match process, right? Just the invoice verification and authorization process in general. What does that look like? What does that mean in an electronic environment? Being open and honest with us when we work together so we can work together as a team to get you there for what that means in this new eVA electronic invoicing process. Again, going back to that original slide, we think and we feel very strongly about the benefits. But what does that mean for you? What changes might need to be made? What adjustments need to be made? Maybe it's nothing. Maybe your model perfectly fits into what we're doing. We hope that's the case. But we got to sit down and talk through all those things with you. And then that last thing, supplier onboarding. Boy, as much as I'd like to, run right out to UAT in production this morning and flip everybody on for invoicing, does that mean your suppliers already? No. What does it mean from a short-term scenario, working with a couple of your key strategic suppliers to get them into invoicing? And what does that mean long-term? And working with you to devise a strategy. Again, our vision is that all suppliers would use electronic invoicing. Well, our vision also is that all suppliers are using eVA to conduct business in Commonwealth of Virginia. And I can tell you from the state entered registrations that we see, we know that's not the case. That's our vision. That's our goal. But what is our short-term and long-term approach to your suppliers to make sure we onboard and get as many suppliers as humanly possible using eVA electronic invoicing? Now, we feel very strongly that the transparency and visibility on the supplier side, in most cases, is enough to get a supplier excited about being in invoicing. They get transparency and visibility into that process and the status of an invoice, where it's at in its approval, that they've never had before. So we think there's a huge benefit there. But again, what does that short-term and long-term strategy look like? And, that's something we want to talk with you about as well. So I will kind of wrap it up here with some additional features and some things beyond maybe what I talked about in the benefits area. So some of these additional features, if you've been on eVA, if you have your own financial system, and again, I know we don't have an integration to Cardinal yet or an interface with Cardinal. Certainly for those of you that do direct entry into Cardinal, I know I'm not helping you here necessarily, but for those agencies that have an exemption and have their own finance system, we have finance system integration. So again, removing that double entry, removing the double keying for your staff as an efficiency gain, sending the okay to pay, basically an approved invoice with allocations, with chart of accounts up into your finance system so that your finance team can get that voucher created and up to Cardinal so that payment can be processed. And then pulling those payment details back into eVA so you truly get the full picture, right? So imagine bringing invoicing into your organization, getting those integrations built, and then sending those payment details back to eVA. You as a leader, you and your staff would have the PO, the receipt, the invoice, the voucher, and the payment details all in one spot for any particular transaction. So you get the full picture of what's happening. Really powerful stuff from a systems integration perspective. There's also coming in 2025, and we've got a little bit of lag on this, but that's fine. Once we get it, we think it's going to be great. Optical character recognition, or it's also called OCR. So talking about that long-term strategy with your suppliers, if you can't get them to log into eVA, or you can't get them, there is also an option for suppliers. They can send their invoice via CXML. So we give the suppliers a couple options to get an invoice in. There's an optical character recognition opportunity. So for a supplier that just absolutely refuses to interact with eVA, they can email a PDF, an attachment. So that invoice as an attachment, it'll be caught by this reader, and then the reader will bring the invoice into eVA electronically, and that's coming in 2025. So I don't have really a date or timeline on that yet, but it's absolutely something that CGI has been working very hard on, and certainly a game changer, particularly with your long-term supply strategy with your supplier community. Now, again, I want your suppliers to access and go into eVA because of the transparency benefits they get. But we know not all suppliers are going to want to interact with eVA. This would certainly at least get that invoice in electronically so you gain the efficiency and transparency on your side of the house, the government side of the house. There's also some additional analytics, dashboards, and home pages. I should have said home pages here that you can have as a landing spot for staff that is managing invoices, approving invoices, or if you yourself wanted to have that kind of landing spot. And I've got just a couple screenshots in here to share what that looks like. So, imagine a home page where you're tracking your invoices, you're tracking if you still have open receipts, meaning that final delivery hasn't been hit on a particular PO, active purchase orders that again don't have final delivery on them. So, active contracts, any exceptions and things that are going on. And exceptions probably could have dropped that one. That's a little bit with vendor performance, but that'll be a discussion for another day. Open workflow tasks there. So you'll notice that's me. And I've got, in this case, this is coming out of my test environment. I have 3 invoices that I need to approve. I'm responsible for approving those. So getting those tasks, getting some tracking in front of you and your staff. There's also some data, and these are things that are available now from an invoicing perspective. Invoice amount and counts and trends per month. So this is kind of interesting to me. You can see this is again my account. I was very busily testing in June. So you can see my volume of testing. And then it's kind of waned off as we went to production in July. So I'm not doing as much looking and testing anymore. And certainly Tony and Miranda have been our key resources for going out and doing the work with the agencies. So my work's kind of dropped off a little bit on that, but kind of interesting to see those trends. But imagine that from an agency perspective, being able to track that. And then a couple other dashboards here. Receipts by status. Now, not very exciting, the what I showed you here. I've got, all my receipts are in approved status, but if there's, draft, in progress, depending on what's going on with your receiving, and then in process invoice amounts by status. And you can see all the various statuses we have for an invoice. Denied invoices, invoices that are being reviewed by accounts payable, invoices that are okay to pay, that are in business review, meaning an invoice has been sent to somebody like me to authorize, pending P card charge. There is a loop where if you get an invoice for a PO that should have been paid by P card, it goes into a loop, and then kind of capturing invoices that have been paid by P card. So again, that's kind of wrapping up with some cool features here and some neat things that are coming later on down the road with the invoicing. So finally, and you might be saying mercifully, shifting out of invoicing, let's talk about forum real quick and some things that are going to be going on at the forum. We're very excited to be heading to the forum again, as I mentioned earlier. And a couple things to look for, or if you're trying to make that decision, or you're trying to put your notes together about why you should be attending the forum. We'll, of course, do an eVA update, just kind of updating you on everything that's gone on in eVA since the last forum. We are doing, this may be the first time you're hearing this, we are doing an upgrade to eVA. Before you go off in a panic and wanting to burn your office building down, I can promise you the upgrade itself is a point upgrade for us. It's not like the transition that we did. The look, the feel, the navigation, the menus, the screens, no changes, guys. So your ability to issue a solicitation, enter and manage a contract, do a requisition, do a purchase order, do receiving, quite honestly, do invoicing, no changes. We're doing a point release so that we can stay up with our software provider on the most recent release from a support perspective. That also allows us to do some of the fun things I talked about earlier, like the optical character recognition uh, functionality and some things like that. So again, Tony Jordan's actually going to be kind of highlighting some things in the at the forum about the upgrade and what those impacts are. They're going to be positive, guys. It's a positive impact. Again, this is not. I will repeat, this is not a transition. What you guys went through back in November of 2022. This is a point release upgrade for us from a support perspective, and then introducing some new functionality for us eventually when we are ready to turn it on. But again, Tony's going to have that for you at the forum. We're going to talk invoicing. Miranda Bowling's going to be our lead there. She's going to have, some hands-on thing. She's going to repeat some of the stuff I talked about today as far as benefits. And hopefully we'll have even more lessons learned as we continue through the rest of September and October to work with our agencies who are early implementers and learning some lessons for that. So lots to share on invoicing. That fourth bullet point, I am over the moon excited for this. Radford University came to us back over the summer. They have done some amazing things in the online eVA analytics. So the analytics that are available to you in real time through our Evalua software, through eVA, there's a reporting area. We were absolutely blown away by what this team did. And guys, they did it of their own volition. We did not give them much support. They are going to go through that with you at the forum. We're calling that voice of the client. I mean, I hope everybody gets a chance to attend that or watch the video recording of that. Some really groundbreaking stuff, and truly an agency embracing, or a university in this case, embracing some of the tools available in eVA. I think you guys are going to be just some amazing stuff that they've done. So the voice of the client, Kim Pritchett and Lakia White, you guys won't necessarily attend this, but they are going to be doing a supplier overview. Invoicing will certainly be a part of that for those suppliers that are there, as well as all sorts of interesting things that suppliers are interested in about doing business in eVA. And then last but not least here, as we're kind of coming to the top of the hour, our in-person buyer user group. We didn't forget about our big areas. There's a lot of new things going on, a lot of exciting things we want to share, but certainly the user group's going to focus on our primary procurement tools, P2P and receiving, sourcing and contracts. We're breaking those up over 2 sessions. So, giving you guys a chance. I mean, obviously, those are the heart and soul of the EVA program. We didn't want to think you forgot about them. And via a user group, getting to put a little focus on our P2P tools and our sourcing and contracting tools. And then I kind of slipped in this last thing here. Don't forget, forum notwithstanding, that our self-paced training is still out there. Our virtual instructor-led training is still out there. So if you have new staff that's coming on and they need to get up to date with EVA, certainly don't forget that those items are out there. So the last thing here is just shifting out. I know Tony and Kelly and Kim have been busily behind the scenes answering your questions while this has been going on. And I always appreciate that behind the scenes work that they do. But we are at the end of my content. We have a few minutes here, about 5 minutes before we hit the top of the hour. If there's any specific questions we need to tackle, and if not, we will send you off into the with hopefully all sorts of positive thoughts about invoicing.
And I think there's probably going to be some internal discussion and maybe some questions that people take back with and have that internal conversation. We did have just some comments that came over in the chat wanting to know about disputed invoices, and definitely that's a process that can be talked through and how the functionality can support that. ones we can engage with you on invoicing. And then there was another comment about online reconciliation with Bank of America Works was launched last with the
Mhm.
invoices, receipts. Uh, could there be some kind of link to share info with eVA? So that's something we can take back.
So we have some Bank of America data already in eVA, believe it or not. There's some data there. It depends what the need is and what needs to happen from that perspective. It's not something we're actively looking at now, but certainly something that we could look at and work with. So, absolutely that option's on the table.
And then I just wanted for Forum to also make a comment about the Supplier Connect that takes place
Yeah.
on that Tuesday. So traditionally, we have had a standalone booth, and we've kind of gone from a really big booth to maybe just like a standard booth. And this year, we're actually going to be part of the larger DGS booth and have eVA representation at that DGS booth, which is a big booth that will have representation from different divisions that are under our agency. So look for us there. And if you can't find us, then you're not looking hard enough. No. We'll remind you during our sessions where to find us, and we'll absolutely have some, I call them sales sheets, but like flyers that we'll have on these different tools, and invoicing is definitely going to be one of those, so that you'll be able to take that back if you're attending, and that will hopefully maybe be additional discussion. And the only other thing I did write down is, and this is for Tony and I, to make sure we include during our buyer user groups that we'll do live at the forum, is we will absolutely, I wrote it down, we're going to do this, give us your tips. So if you didn't come with any today, anybody that you know that's at your organization that didn't come to the user group today, pass along that is where you can come and give us your tips. So we'll absolutely build time in so that we can collect those from y'all, because that's the point of our user group at its core, right? Is for us to connect, share information, exchange information. And it's just not a one way direction of information coming down to you. We also want you guys to share back up with us and then out with all of our users to help everybody use the tool to its fullest. And I'm just taking a look to see what other questions we have. And Tony, I'll let you take a look at, I know you're answering one question, but I'll let you take a look at the other one about confirming orders.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Karen Welcher asked that question. I'm not sure when we did that trainings. Take a look at that. See if we. Uh,
Yeah, that's not ringing a bell for me either.
yeah, I don't know if that was something that
We'll follow up with you,
VCCS did,
Karen.
perhaps. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll follow
VCCS
up.
does have a pretty robust training program that we maybe weren't as involved in, if that's a VCCS question. So,
And then somebody put in the comments about connecting via Teams. This is supported through Zoom. So
yes,
if
correct.
there should have been zero option for you to join via Teams. So I apologize if there was any confusion with that. And then do you have a GA workflow of the invoicing process? Just a general overview,
We
I
do.
guess. Yes.
We do.
And
Yeah, you can either reach out directly to me or through your account exec, and I can flow that back. Yeah, but we do. We absolutely do.
perfect. Well, we are at the top of the hour. And if you have any additional questions that you think of after we end today's buyer user group, feel free to reach out to your account executive, to customer care, to a member of our team, and we'll be happy to assist you the best that we can. Thank you guys so much for taking out time today to attend, be interactive with us, and hopefully take away a lot of great content, especially around invoicing, that will help you have further internal discussion on how you can leverage eVA best to help you accomplish your procurement goals. All right, guys, we will see you hopefully at the forum. And for those of you that we don't see at the forum, we're going to see you next year. Take care, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.